Welcome back to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus today has been on the launching of a major campaign that shines a light on domestic violence and animal abuse. In Wisconsin, 68% of battered women revealed that abusive partners had also been violent towards pets or livestock. And more of the numbers in these cases occurred in the presence of the women and or children to intimidate and control them. My next guest is Liz Marquardt, and she is the Education Director at Sojourner Family Peace Center in Milwaukee. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Thank you for being here to talk about such a serious subject. If you would tell us more about the Sojourner Family Peace Center and how you help victims and abusers of domestic violence.
Well, we have two cornerstone programs. We have the shelter that everyone's familiar with. We still have the shelter called Sojourner Truth House after Sojourner Truth. Okay. Even though the agency is now Sojourner Family Peace Center. It's
Gotcha.
a 46-bed, wheelchair accessible shelter for battered women and their children. And out of the shelter we also run a 24-hour hotline, which we'll talk about later. And the other major program that we run, our cornerstone program, is advocacy in the restraining order clinic, where we help people get restraining orders.
Okay, and so if you would talk about your involvement in the campaign that we've been talking about today to bring awareness to the connection of animal abuse and domestic violence.
It was a natural outgrowth of our partnership with the Wisconsin Humane Society, because as we were launching the pilot project that Jill talked about, where they help shelter the animals so that women who need that can escape from abuse. It was a natural outgrowth that we started doing some education, and Jill and Sojourner did some speaking to some classes, and I know they did lots of speaking to law enforcement, and it was a natural thing to think about a larger public awareness campaign to shine light on the issue.
Absolutely. It is a fact that animal cruelty problems are people problems, and I think we've brought that out during today's conversations, but when animals are abused, it's definitely a fact that people are at risk. Yeah.
Even when the animals are not hurt by an abuser, often the victim is very afraid to leave the animal with the abuser, because that could be a way to retaliate if there's a strong bond between the victim and the animal.
Absolutely. So do you have any programs that are for abusers? Maybe sometimes they realize that they have some issues and they need help? We do.
We have a program called Beyond Abuse. It's a 23-week educational program. There are groups for men and groups for women. And while most of the people who come to that program are referred because they've gotten in trouble with the law, we do encourage people to come on their own and not wait until the police are called.
Absolutely. So you do have a website that pretty much gives all the details on the programs and services that you offer. What is that website address?
It's familypeacecenter.org, FAMILY. PEACECENTER.org. It's very long.
Okay, and it's right there on the screen so people can write that down, familypeacecenter.org, and a phone number where people can call for more information.
Well, our main number is 276-1911, but after hours you can also reach us on the hotline at 933-2722.
Okay, something I feel is very important to mention is the fact that Governor Scott Walker recently signed 3 bills aimed at strengthening domestic violence laws, and I'd like to talk about those. It directly deals, one of them directly deals with the tragedy that happened at the Brookfield Spa 2 years ago. DAs are to report to call the Wisconsin Department of Justice every time an officer responds to a domestic abuse call but doesn't arrest anyone. So that was the first bill he signed. The second law actually gives prosecutors more tools to go after domestic abuse suspects. It allows them to add stalking or threatening to stalk to the list of actions that qualify as domestic abuse. And when a new judge takes over a case, any temporary restraining order already in place remains effective until a new decision about a new one is made. So very important, you'd agree.
Absolutely.
And then finally, that third bill signed by the governor, individuals subject to a domestic abuse injunction has has to surrender their weapons. They have to fill out a form documenting their weapons. They have to fill out a form that actually a judge gets to hold a hearing to order them to surrender the weapons, and when the injunction expires, they'd have to request them back in writing. So with your experience with domestic violence, how important are these new laws?
They're very important to give the tools to the justice system that are needed. The law that requires abusers to surrender their firearm when an injunction is issued has been around for a while, but we haven't had enforcement mechanisms like the ones that these put in place. There have been some places around the state who have put in place processes like this law requires, including Milwaukee. So a shout out to Milwaukee County for being ahead of the requirements that the law put in place.
And, I mean, you think about the sad scenario that happened at the Brookfield Spa. Violence at the workplace is something that victims have to think about often, because you have a scenario where they maybe dealt with a person with abuse at their home. Maybe they escaped that scenario, but the abuser still knows where they work, and obviously everyone needs their job. So sometimes it gets scary even walking to the parking lot, or maybe the person coming in. How does someone in that scenario ensure their safety as well as the people they work with?
Yeah, well, we talked about having advocates at the restraining order clinic, but we also have advocates at the district attorney's office, in the police districts, and also advocates that someone can call and just try to work through some of those situations. What are the options? What is the plan? What are the ways that you can increase your safety, and what are the strategies? Who should you talk to? Who should you let know? So we can help people figure that out, and you don't have to report to the police, and you don't have to file a restraining order to get services at Sojourner.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about more of the programs and services you offer, including that 24-hour domestic violence hotline for the city of Milwaukee.
The 24-hour domestic violence hotline serves lots and lots of purposes because it's there 24/7, 365. Thank you to all the volunteers who help answer that phone, as well as those who work holidays. We just had Easter, and we had the hotline staffed over the holiday. Besides taking crisis calls and people who are just trying to figure out what they should do, who need support, who need to know what resources there are, who just need a listening ear from someone who understands. We also take lots and lots of calls for people who just want information, who just want to figure out, is this abuse? I'm not in crisis now. I don't need to do anything now, but I want to learn more about abuse, as well as friends and family members. We also take all of the calls from law enforcement in Milwaukee when they make a domestic violence arrest to make sure that the victim has easy access right then and there at that moment from someone on the hotline who's been trained to take those calls. And then we also call people when the abuser is being released from jail. So those jail release calls are a very important part of someone's safety plan if they have to put it into action when the abuser is getting out of jail.
Yeah, and that's something that I didn't even think about, but that is something that anyone would want to know.
So besides the crisis work that we do on the hotline and in the shelter and in the restraining order clinic, we also understand that once someone is safe, once they're past the violence, doesn't mean that they're completely healed yet. And they still need support, they still need resources, they may need a support group, they may need counseling, they may need help finding a lawyer because there's an action in family court. So advocates can help with that, as well as support groups that we have both in the shelter and for women who are in the community and not just staying in our shelter.
And you did mention you have a 46-bed emergency shelter for women and children. So other than just a place to sleep, you offer food, transportation, clothing, security, support, counseling, all the things that you talked about.
Absolutely.
And that's important for people to know.
The other thing that we do both at the shelter and for victims who are in the community is a program called Life Skills. So we do job readiness and help people get their resume up to speed, help with interview skills, job searches, and education if they want to further their education to kind of repair the harm been done from being in a relationship.
Women have to leave a scenario where they only have the clothes on their back. So is there something in place where if they bring their child or their children with them to the shelter, do you have clothing to help them continue on?
We always have on our wish list that we need new sleepwear in particular,
Okay.
and there is a list on our website of the things that we always need. We have lots of partnerships in the community for places that have clothing, including interview clothing if somebody needs to get a good outfit to go on a job interview. Bottomless Closet is one of the places that we use, but we also help people find those resources in the community that can help them with rebuilding their wardrobe.
Okay. And I'm just kind of thinking, a lot of times I probably watch too much Lifetime channel, but the scenarios where women really don't know what to do. They want to leave, or they need a restraining order, but they don't know where to start. Can you help us kind of figure out what do they do if they need to come up with a plan?
Right. And I think it's different for everyone, but I think feeling like you need to do something but not sure where to start, we can sit down and help go through all the various options and just help gather information, talk about resources, look at various avenues that someone could take. You don't always have to call the police, but sometimes that is the safest thing to do. Sometimes it's not. Same thing with the restraining order. And even when we can't shelter someone, we can help them find somewhere else that they can go that's safe.
Okay, and so restraining orders, they are issued at the Milwaukee County Courthouse?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's at 901 North 9th Street in room 711.
Yes, ma'am.
So does someone need to just show up there and take action from that point?
It's best to call first because there's a couple of things that you need to bring with you and be aware of and come at certain times so that you can get the process done in the same day, because it's not just coming to our office, it also requires going in front of a court commissioner and filing the papers with the clerk of courts. So there's a couple steps, so I would have people call 278-5079 to get more information about what to bring and what the process entails.
Okay, and you spoke of your advocacy services. So how in fact do you guys all work together to help people that come to the center?
Well, we have advocates, like I said, in several different places. We have them in the police district, so someone who is even just thinking about calling the police or finding out what their resources are could talk with the advocate who's in their police district. And at the district attorney's office, so if a case has been already referred to the DA's office for prosecution, we can help them with that process. And you don't have to have any of those processes going, just a call and say, I really want someone to help me figure this out. Starting with the hotline, you know, getting beyond the immediate crisis, but if you want ongoing support, either from a group or from an individual advocate or both, we can make that happen. The hotline is really the key.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that fear is probably the one main thing that people have to get over in order to take the steps to utilize the services that you have and know that that one step is the next journey to the rest of their lives.
Well, and it's important that you understand that it is frightening and it's not an unfounded fear, and it is a risky place to be in, and that things can get worse. So we do not require that anyone make a commitment to leave the abuser when they call us. We can support them if they decide to stay. We can help them figure out how to do that more safely, and we don't ever want anyone to think that they can't call us because they're not going to go along with our agenda, because we don't have an agenda other than to support folks.
All right, that's a great point to make. Thank you so much for being here today. And of course, Liz Marquardt is the Education Director at the Sojourner Family Peace Center in Milwaukee. You can log on to familypeacecenter.org for more information or call 414-276-1911 for more information. If you need help, keep in mind they have a 24-hour domestic violence hotline at 414-933-2722. That is going to do it for today's show. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Thank you for watching, and I do hope you join us again next week as we take another look at our issues, Milwaukee. Have a great day.